In the middle of the 19th century, a woman sat before her mirror, preparing for a ball that could determine her entire future. She reached for a small, innocent-looking pot of rouge, carefully dabbing the red pigment onto her lips and cheeks, hoping to mimic the flush of youth. She believed she was enhancing her beauty to secure a husband and a livelihood. What she didn't realize was that she was applying death to her face. Within months, the symptoms would begin. Her skin would turn a pallid gray. Her gums would bleed and turn blue. Her nervous system would slowly begin to disintegrate, leading to tremors, mood swings, and eventually madness. This society, seemingly so obsessed with purity, morality, and natural health, was secretly poisoning itself in the pursuit of an impossible standard. And across London, a single, terrifying reality was taking hold. The very thing meant to make these women beautiful was slowly rotting them from the inside out. They were victims of a beauty industry that was, in the truest sense of the word, fatal. To understand this tragedy, we must first understand the era from which it was born. The Victorian age is often remembered for its industrial triumphs, its sprawling empire, and its rigid moral codes. But beneath the stiff collars and corsets lay a world of hidden dangers. It is a mistake to think of Victorian cosmetics as merely primitive versions of our own. They were something far more insidious. In an age before the FDA, before ingredient labels, and before modern chemistry understood the concept of cumulative toxicity, the beauty industry was a lawless frontier. Merchants could bottle industrial waste and sell it as a miracle cure. And they did. Today, we are exploring the toxic ingredients and the crushing social stigma of Victorian cosmetics. We must understand the terror of facing societal rejection on one side and physical poisoning on the other. We are looking at a time when a woman had to choose between being a social pariah or a medical casualty. The historical significance of Queen Victoria's personal preferences cannot be overstated. Early in her reign, the young queen declared that makeup was impolite. In her view, a painted face was the mark of actors and prostitutes, vulgarity personified. Suddenly, the intricate machinery of Victorian social etiquette shifted. The overt use of cosmetics, which had been celebrated in the French courts of the previous century, became a social death sentence. To be seen with painted lips was to announce one's lack of morals. It suggested a woman was fast, loose, or perhaps involved in the scandalous world of the theater. And yet, the biological and economic imperative to appear young and healthy did not vanish simply because the queen disapproved. Women were trapped in a paradox. They were expected to look naturally radiant, flushed with health, and youthful. But they were forbidden from using the tools that created that appearance. This created a profound psychological crisis. If a woman looked too pale, she was deemed sickly, likely tubercular, and therefore unmarriageable in a fiercely competitive market. If she looked too red, she was a harlot. She had to navigate a razor-thin line between pallor and promiscuity. And so, the makeup did not disappear. It simply went underground, becoming a secret shame shared by women across the empire. The dressing room became a place of clandestine operations. Women would bite their lips or pinch their cheeks violently before entering a room to induce a natural rush of blood. But for a more lasting effect, they turned to the toilette, a secret ritual of application. For those who wanted color without chemicals, the options were disgusting, though relatively safe. The most common red pigment came from carmine. This was produced by crushing thousands of cochineal beetles, boiling them in ammonia or sodium carbonate. Imagine the desperation of a high society debutante. To avoid the stigma of being painted, she would rub the blood of crushed insects into her lips, hoping the lighting in the parlor was dim enough to pass it off as nature's work. But beetle blood was expensive, and it faded quickly. For the woman who needed to secure a husband, or for the aging socialite desperate to cling to her status, the beetles were not enough. They needed something brighter, something more permanent, and the chemists of the era were all too happy to oblige, regardless of the cost to human life. Anyways, I'm Tim, watching the past so we can understand the present, and together, we keep history reborn. The Toxic Reality, 440 to 615. This is where the story turns from a social history into a medical horror. To achieve that perfect, indelible crimson, manufacturers turn to vermilion. Vermilion is a brilliant red pigment derived from cinnabar. Its chemical name is mercury sulfide. When a Victorian woman applied this lipstick, she was essentially coating her mouth with a potent neurotoxin. The skin of the lips is thin and highly absorbent, providing a direct route for the poison to enter the bloodstream. The immediate aftermath of mercury poisoning is subtle. Tremors, mood swings, a metallic taste in the mouth. In a cruel twist of irony, one of the symptoms of mercury poisoning is erethism, a condition characterized by excessive blushing and shyness. The poison effectively mimicked the very modesty the women were trying to fake, encouraging them to use more. But as the accumulation continued, the effects became grotesque. The gums would turn blue androsaide, teeth would loosen and fall out. The nervous system would misfire, causing the limbs to shake uncontrollably. The skin, which the makeup was meant to enhance, would begin to turn gray and brittle. These women were slowly disassembling their own biology, one application at a time. Toxicity, the price of beauty. And it wasn't just the lips. To achieve the pale, translucent skin that signaled a life of leisure, proving one did not work outdoors, women used powders based on lead and wafers made of arsenic. Dr. Mackenzie's improved harmless arsenic complexion. Wafers were sold openly. The package promised a clear complexion. In reality, arsenic destroys red blood cells. It causes the skin to pale because the user is slowly dying of anemia. We must understand the terror of facing this without modern science. These women did not know they were poisoning themselves, or, perhaps more chillingly, some did suspect, but the social cost of ugliness was deemed higher than the physical cost of sickness. When the symptoms appeared, the hair loss, the skin eruptions, they were often misdiagnosed as consumption or hysteria. And tragically, the solution for a woman looking sickly was often to apply more makeup. It became a vicious cycle. The lead in the face powder corroded the epidermis, causing sores and scarring. To hide the sores, women applied thicker layers of lead enameling. Every rational attempt to fix their appearance only seemed to feed the disease. They were locked in a chemical trap, poisoning themselves to hide the symptoms of the poison. The fog eventually began to lift. As the 20th century dawned, the discovery of toxicity in these compounds and the eventual regulation of the industry changed the landscape of beauty. But the psychological scars ran deep. We look back at the Victorians and shudder at their ignorance. We wonder how they could rub mercury on their lips and eat arsenic for breakfast. But does that really sound like ancient history? Or does it feel uncomfortably familiar? We still suffer for beauty. We still risk our health for social acceptance. The ingredients have changed, but the intricate machinery of pressure remains exactly the same. Anyway, I'm Tim, watching the past so we can understand the present, and together we keep history reborn. I'll see you in the next era.